topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert Show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from experts on such topics as legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to our experts in community association law, estate planning law, tax relief, Medicare, public insurance adjusters, neuropathy treatment, business brokers, and personal injury law, along with many other topics. Now here's your host for the last 17 years, Steve O.
This is in Oklahoma. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show where we bring you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. You know, I get letters probably daily, people saying, how come you don't listen to my letters? We've been asking you to add certain shows. Well, the number one requested show has been longevity, anti-aging. I call it the skinny injection. We just haven't had an opening. We got an opening recently, and I am so blessed. We found one of the top health agencies, Executive Medicine of Texas. And not only do we have the top health agency, is that we have one of the finest CEOs of Executive Medicine of Texas. Let me introduce you to our new show. I'm so glad we've got Judy Gaman. Good morning, Judy.
Oh, good morning. I'm so happy to be on with you today. And this is just, such a great show you have. And I'm honored. You talk about having me on the show, but it's my honor to come on and be a part of this.
Okay, Judy, the check's in the mail. Okay, that's okay. You know what? I was reading your bio. Oh, my God. This is like old hat to you, public speaking and having your own show.
It is funny because we all, like in our childhood, we find that there's certain things that people think maybe aren't so great. Like I remember getting talks too much on my report card. And now I get paid to talk, whether it's on a stage or it is on the radio or on television or on a podcast. Like it's kind of ironic, but I think if we look at those things that people always pointed out about us, and then we just make those weaknesses our strengths. That's kind of the way the world works, right?
Exactly. I always have said you can judge a tree by the fruit it bears. And I look at your fruit. I mean, you had a nationally syndicated show called Staying Young. And you not only did you have it, you had it for nearly a decade.
We did. And the funny thing about that was I had told the founders, two of our physicians, I had said, I just have this feeling that you all should get some media training. I don't know why. Now, this is a long time ago. This was like 2006. I said, I just feel really strongly about it. So I sent them to the Texas Actors Studio, which was a brilliant thing. They actually had them sit down in front of a camera, and then they asked them medical questions, and they let them just go on. Then they played it back for them. They're like, you talk for 10 minutes. Nobody knows what you said. You need to learn how to talk in sound bites. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And then I got a call from a Dallas station, and they said, the clinic we've had on, the doctor we've had him on for a long time, and he's retiring his show. And we're wondering if you'd be interested, if you'd pick up the show. And I literally said, well, hold on a second. I'm right in the middle of something. I put them on hold. And I did this happy dance around the office because I was like, this is it. This is why I had this prompting. And so it was just such a natural progression. And so we had that show. It was in Dallas. And then we ended up being on 57 stations plus Sirius XM for a number of years. It must have been a decade before we had flipped it to a podcast. And right before we flipped it to a podcast, we changed the name from Staying Young Show to Stay Young America. And that was actually a CBS thing. They wanted us to kind of rebrand the show because we changed our flagship station. And that carried on and carried on. We have a new podcast that's going to be out this fall called Boss of Your Health. And I'm super excited about that. It's going along with a new book we have coming out, Be the Boss of Your Health. So this is just something that, I enjoy. I enjoy meeting people like you as well.
Okay. I got to tell you, I am so excited. For some reason, across the country, not just Texas and Oklahoma, but throughout the country, we have been getting so many calls from people. And I was surprised. I thought it'd be mostly women. We have a lot of men also interested in longevity and anti-aging, and especially with the hottest topic, I call it the skinny injection. But I want to get back to executive medicine of Texas. What made you start this practice?
Well, I think there was a lot of things that kind of went into it. The founders were both on what we call the HMO treadmill, and they were getting severe burnout. And one of them said, I don't know, maybe I'm going to go back and be a math professor. The other one's ready to ride his Harley out into the wind and on the road forever. And they were just like, this isn't what we went to medical school for. We're being dictated by an insurance company. Generally, some nurse is telling us whether we can order some tests. They've never even seen the patient. And it was just becoming just a racket. And they said, this isn't it. Nobody's winning here. Well, maybe the insurance company, but the patients aren't winning. We're not winning. Our staff isn't winning. And they sat down and literally on a napkin, they said, okay, if we could do this differently, what would it look like? And that was the birth of Executive Medicine of Texas. It was literally a napkin in a coffee shop. And it's the first line on it said, we would treat our patients like family. We would do for them what we would do if it was our wife, or if it was our daughter or our son or our mother or father. And we know what they need. We know what tests they need. We know what the best direction to go in is. And that was really the crux of all of it. And they just came alive again. Now, these are two of the most brilliant minds in medicine, Mark Anderson and Walter Gaman. And they just came back alive with this love of medicine and just the technology they could use and the specialized testing. I mean, we do things like, genetic testing. We do all kinds of food and additive sensitivities, brain mapping. I mean, things that you're never going to find in your HMO practice. One, because insurance is not interested in keeping you alive past when you're going to be a member on their plan. They're only wanting to keep you out of the hospital and check the box and stick a Band-Aid on it. And that's not the kind of medicine that they wanted to provide. And now we're 7 providers strong. We just added an orthopedic surgeon, not to do surgery, but to keep people out of the OR, doing PRP. So there's a lot of interesting things happening within the practice, but they all every one of them stems from what is best for the patient. And pretty much everything that we have added to our practice is something that we have done ourselves. And we found value in it. We get asked all the time, hey, will you provide this test, or we want to sell you this machine, or reps come out of the woodwork. And we're like, if we don't see value in it, then we're not going to provide it. Because unless the result that we get from this test is going to tell us, okay, what can we do? What can we change for this patient based on these results that's going to help them live longer, that's going to put more health in their years? And, that's kind of been our principle since the founding. So now we're over 20 years strong and never looked back.
Well, you brought up insurance companies, and I'm not going to mention any of them, but I got to tell you, I am so shocked that the insurance companies do not invest more when it comes to weight loss, because when you're overweight, you can have heart problems, you can have so many diabetes, and they just don't get that involved in it financially. And it's going to cost them so much more in the long run.
Right, but you have to remember that a lot of companies, which most people get their insurance from their companies, they maybe stick with an insurance plan for a year or two, and then they shop it out and they change insurance plans. And this is, insurance is kind of like a gamble. What can we get away with? We have this pot of money. How can we keep from spending it? And if there's a way that we can do just enough, that's really their MO. Now, it's funny you mentioned this, what you call the skinny shots. So we'll call them GLP-1s. So
okay.
It's funny you mentioned the GLP-1s, because we were using GLP-1s kind of in the beginning, a little bit of off-label. What we found is, first of all, let me back up. These things have been on the market a long time. We've used them with diabetic patients. So when they started becoming really popular, you saw a lot of kickback, but a lot of that kickback was coming from industry that says, oh, wait. If you get people skinny or they don't want to eat as much as they've been eating, that might hurt the food industry. That might hurt all these weight loss clinics. That might hurt all these companies. So it wasn't really in the patient's best interest. But what we found as we started using them is we found that they were great for inflammation. We saw people with chronic inflammation, and it was amazing. I'll tell you a story. My daughter, before she was fully diagnosed with MS, she had optic neuritis and went blind in one eye, and they had her on lots of steroids. So she went on a GLP-1 because she had gained the steroid weight. I don't know if you know this, but steroids can make your blood sugar go up. All these kind of crazy things can happen. And what we found is, although they told her she probably wouldn't gain sight in that eye, she didn't gain it all back, but she actually has some sight. She's not fully legally blind in that eye. She went from a complete blackout to being able to see, and it didn't affect her driving a car, now parking maybe. but this was something we saw, that not only did she lose weight, but some of her other symptoms went away. And this was very common even with our male patients. What we saw something very fascinating in our male patients, and female as well, but there were several male patients that are top of mind right now as I tell you the story. They came in and they said, my blood sugar's creeping up. The A1C wasn't exactly where the insurance company would say they were diabetic, but they were creeping up. We don't like to see it go over 5.6 for sure. And so when we start seeing it creeping at 5.5, 5.6, we want to do something about it, because we don't want them to develop diabetes. So we were using the GLP-1s on pre-diabetics, and what we found was astounding. People that we have seen for years we've given them every advice, you got to cut back on your alcohol intake. Here's what's going on. You have all this inflammation going on. We're seeing it in your blood work. And they got on these GLP-1s, and their inflammatory markers went down, and their thirst or cravings for alcohol, zero. And they were able to get off the alcohol without detoxing, which is amazing. And then they saw their life just turn around. And these are high functioning people that thought, oh, life's going great. I'm a CEO, or I'm an entrepreneur, or whatever. But they didn't realize how far down that road of unhealthy they had gotten until they started getting healthy. So we see it as not for everybody, but let's see how you do, and what the lab work shows. What are the inflammatory markers show, not just the scale. And then how do we make sure that we keep the muscle on you? Because that is one concern with GLP-1s. But it is really about a patient-doctor relationship. I see these all the time being sold online, and it's worrisome. It's worrisome to all of us, because first of all, this is something you're putting into your body. And anytime you put something into your body, you become a bit of a chemistry project. And the more you put into your body, whether those are more supplements or those are more, even prescription medications, whatever it is you're putting in, they all interact with one another. So it's very dangerous to start these things without being under the care of somebody who really, truly understands all of the ways that it can affect you. And then make sure, like I said, that you're keeping your muscle mass on. That's so important. And, this is really what we do. We look at the patient as a whole, and we're able to guide them through this wellness journey, keep them living longer, living healthier, whether that's with a GLP-1, whether that's with many of the tools we have in our toolbox.
Well, I would like to be able to say, here's our first question from a viewer, but we've got about 25 questions, and I'm going to pick this one first. I listened to a lot of your shows on Ask the Experts. This is probably going to be your number one show. My question is, you were promoting the show as Concierge Medicine. Can your expert tell us what is concierge medicine?
Yeah, sure. I'm glad that we are covering this topic because there seems to be a bit of a disconnect. And concierge medicine and pay for services, cash pay for services, are not the same thing. A doctor may say, I'm going to quit my HMO practice, I'm going to hang a shingle, and you're going to pay me cash, and I'm going to be, quote, a concierge doctor. No, you're going to be a pay for service doctor. There's a big difference between a private pay for service doctor and a concierge doctor. Because what happens when you're in a true concierge practice, they have the modalities, like we have stress tests. So we have a treadmill in the office. We have a CT scanner for full body scans, X-ray, DEXA. We have a support staff. We have a functional nutritionist, micronutrient testing, all these kind of things that are going to help us get to the core of your issues so that we can partner with you. And in concierge, this is like a year-long program. Our people stay in it. I mean, we've been in business 20 plus years. We're going into our 21st year. And we have people that have been with us since the beginning. We have people that have just started with us. And then they renew. They're like, it's kind of like first class. Once you sit in first class and you get your meal and you figure out how that works, you can't sit back at the back of the plane and like sit next to the bathroom. You just can't do it. Even if it's a 2-hour flight, you just can't do it. So really, it is a big difference between the two. Now, concierge medicine is generally membership driven, which means that you do pay that fee. And there are some people that are doing what I call quasi concierge. I'm not sure where this falls on the legal scale, but every state's a little different. I know for our state in Texas, and in some of the other states, it is kind of a no-no. But they will take insurance, and then they will charge a fee on top of it and say, well, if you want access to me, then you have to have this. But then we'll file your insurance for this, and you got to pay cash for that. And it gets really convoluted. But then there's some legal issues. There's also some issues with those agreements with those insurance plans. And you don't kind of know what you're going to get and when you're going to get hit with a bill and when you're not. That a true concierge practice is, here's your membership fee, here's all the services that are included. And a lot of times that, like for us, it includes a half-day executive physical. People fly in from all over the globe, not just Texas and Oklahoma and the surrounding states, but we have people from Bermuda. We have people from all over that come to us, and they stay at the hotel and they come in for this service and go through this half-day physical to really get to the bottom of what their issues are. And then they say, you know what? I'm going to come back. You're going to manage. You and your team are going to manage my health because this is too important. Of all the things they may own, they know that they only get one body. This is your one shot. And if your body gives way and it's over, everything's over. Nothing else matters.
Well, speaking of long distance, here's a question from the Bahamas. I'm really enjoying finding out about concierge medicine. I'm so glad you're providing a show like this. My question is, why should I choose your practice?
Well, that's a great question. And we do actually have patients from the Bahamas, so you might run into one of them. Well, this is really, I think, what sets executive medicine of Texas apart. One, we have physicians that are so well versed in primary care and in different modalities of that, different areas, really have strengths in certain maybe it's anti-aging, or maybe it's cardiovascular, and they're good at all of it, but they all have an interest in something else. So say you come to us as a patient and you have a really unique case. We have one doctor super, super well-versed in autoimmune, a couple of them actually, one that does really well with Parkinson's patients. And you get a team of doctors. So our doctors they work so well together that they have something called Journal Club. I think they've actually renamed it since, but for years it's been called Journal Club. And basically, if they have a hard case, or if they have something that says, this is a little perplexing, they will bring the case to the group. If you've seen like House, the show House, where he brings it all to his interns, it's really a round table discussion with board certified primary care physicians, and then now our orthopedic surgeon. But they come together and say, hey, this is a unique case. So what do you think about this? And they solve these issues together. Now, is every case that way? No, but sometimes we have them. And when we have them, you have a whole team behind you. If you come in and it's like, this is one of my favorites. Patient comes in with a baggie full of prescriptions. And then, you got to kind of dig through it and say, okay, well, you're taking this one because of the side effects to this one. And really, we can get you off of most of these. Some prescriptions, you just can't get off of. We don't want someone going off their high blood pressure medication and then having a stroke. You could stay on it. You can wean down it while we take care of the root cause. And then we're able to get you off of it, perhaps. But it is really about how do we treat the individual in a way that puts them at the best chance of living a long, active, and healthy life. And it's very individualized. Even though like our physicals, you can kind of go online and see on our physicals, emtexas.com, what's included in different physicals, what's included in different concierge plans. All of our concierge plans start with one of these physicals, because we can't advise you unless we know everything that we need to know about your health. And it's your health history and your current health status.
I knew the show was going to go by fast. I didn't think it would go by this fast. We're actually at almost 2,000 likes right now, just on TikTok. I can't wait to see the other numbers. The great part is Judy's going to be with us every month. We're going to be doing a show on Fridays with your Tennessee market, right?
We are.
Now, how do people reach you? That's the most important question.
Yeah, the best way is to go to emtexas.com. Texas stands for executive medicine, obviously. Texas is spelled out. And, I'm in my Tennessee house right now, so I'm excited to see our Tennessee crowd as well, Texas and Oklahoma. We just have so many people from Oklahoma. But going to the website is just a fabulous way to see all of the different services that we offer. And then, give us a call. We can talk you through what is best for you as an individual, because it's not a one size fits all. We need to know, what are your needs?
Well, I cannot wait for our next show. Judy, thank you so much. Hey, we'll see you next month. Hey, are you going to be doing the Tennessee show, or will your doctor?
I think our orthopedic surgeon is going to do it. But if he's ever out of town, then I'm going to fill in. So yeah, but Dr. Edwin Spencer, he's amazing, award-winning surgeon. He's got lots of patents on things that are being used right now in surgery. But his big goal is to keep people out of that with PRP and all kinds of great ways now that keep people from these replacements and somewhat barbaric surgeries.
The name of the practice is Executive Medicine of Texas. Judy, we'll see you next month.
We'll see you.
We're going to go to break. We'll be right back.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.